way you'll rate this is if I'm doing it like that one really well, it's a full point. If I do it pretty well, like I try, a 0.5. And if you're like, I'm just not good at that one, 0 points. So tally it up. You might end up with a 0.5 something here, the way it goes. Our first question is, do I usually look at the speaker while he or she is talking? Really try to keep that eye contact. Number two, do I wait patiently for the speaker to finish talking before I respond? In other words, I don't interrupt. Three, do I make understanding my goal? So I'm listening to understand, not just to respond. Usually that's what gets us into trouble with number two. Four, am I usually sensitive to the speaker's immediate need? Now, today I'm going to give you that one question, and it's from Charles Duhigg. You know, he wrote The Power of Habit that informed so much of what James Clear did with Atomic Habits. And then he wrote a magnificent book 2 years ago, maybe a year ago, Super Communicators. And that's what we're going to take it from today. Number five, do I make it a practice to check my emotions? So in empathic thinking, I want to know how you're feeling, and I'm going to try to keep my emotions out of it. Be very objective while trying to be empathic with you. Six, do I regularly suspend my judgment until I get the whole story? This is a great part of crucial conversations. If you're familiar with that model, it's what's the story I'm telling myself from the data that I gathered? What are those emotions that I've got to put in check? And so we got to often go back and re-examine the data to figure out the story. And that's what I'm really trying to do in this conversation is get that story and try to connect first before I correct or move on to something else. Number seven, am I in the practice of summing up what the speaker says at major intervals? Going back to Covey with what John was talking about, Covey teaches this in that practice of diagnose before prescribe. And he asks us to be a translator or an interpreter. So if you had to translate that sentence, how would you do it? And when we're just translating, then we're responding very differently and letting the person know we've heard what you've said and we're seeing if we've interpreted that correctly. Number eight, do I ask questions for clarity when needed? So I'm really looking to understand here and not leading the witness, but clarify the thoughts. And then finally, number nine, does my body language show that listening is a priority? Over 80% of our actual listening that's being interpreted by the other person is done by the visual cues that we're giving them. So you think about it, I think it's 87% perhaps, if I'm getting that number right, but I know it's over 80%, is what's that person's body language telling me as we do it? Now, in the day and age that we are in, I also want you to think about this. How do these apply to listening through writing? So we have a lot of our communication through different written communication channels. And how well do we do really trying to listen and understand and make sure that we've got that understanding and grasped it correctly before we move forward?